Oh, wow.
Welcome, everyone. We will at this time call to order the Thursday, July 25th, 2019 Metro Flood Diversion Authority Board to meeting. We have some guests today, and maybe we'll just go around the room and introduce ourselves. As you know, Colonel Calkins retired, and we have Colonel Jansen with us. So if you would please introduce yourself.
No, absolutely. Thanks very much. It's great to be here in Fargo and great to meet everybody. I intended to be here a month ago with Colonel Calkins. I arranged my move from Pennsylvania to line up with the last board meeting, and unfortunately we had some transportation issues and we couldn't make it happen. But one, he was great about a very detailed and deliberate transition. And two, he wanted to express his appreciation to this body for a fantastic experience. And I know he respected and admired this group very much. He retired and moved on to the state of Colorado and just starting a new chapter of his life. But it's an honor for me to join the team. I have a lot of trust and confidence in the Corps team. I'm new to St. Paul District, but I'm not new to the Corps of Engineers. Had assignments in the Seattle district, I commanded the Buffalo district, and I've had a couple of years of experience in Washington, D.C. at our headquarters. So I've seen and experienced flood fighting at the local level up to the enterprise level. So I understand the sense of urgency that the community is pursuing here and the long-term vitality that flood risk reduction can bring. And I'm absolutely committed to do my part in making that happen. So great to be here. Thanks.
Welcome. I'm just going to, rather than taking roll call, just go around and everyone can introduce yourselves to the Colonel.
Everybody, I'm Terry Williams. I'm with the Corps of Engineers.
Heather Warden, County Commission Assistant.
Kevin Wilson, Deputy District Engineer at St. Paul District.
Dan Jacobson with the Cass County Joint Water Resource Board, and I'm filling in for Roger Olson. That's why my sign is tipped down.
Grant Whalen, I'm a Clay County Commissioner.
Chad Peterson, Cass County Commissioner.
Rick Steen, Cass County Commission.
Tom Dawson, I represent the Chamber's business leaders for the flood control.
Mike Thorstad, West Fargo City Commission.
Chuck Henningsen, Ward City Council.
Tony Grinberg, Fargo City Commission.
Dave Pepcorn, Fargo City Commission.
Tim Mahoney, Mayor of Fargo.
And Mary Sherling, Cass County.
And Kevin Campbell, Clay County Commission.
Again, welcome. And welcome to, I'm sorry, JJ. Mayor.
Yeah, Jonathan Judd, Mayor of Moorhead.
Welcome. Anybody else on the line? And thank you to the audience for your interest in this project and to our very talented technical staff that is off to the side here. You have before you the minutes of the previous meeting. I would take any corrections or a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Order of the agenda, are there any additions or changes to the order of the agenda? Or motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the agenda is approved. The PMC report.
All righty. So the PMC report for July 25th, 2019. The program controls report. Based on a program budget in 2018 dollars of $2.75 billion, actual cost to date as of June 30th, 2019 is $468,900,000, leaving a remaining budget of $2.285 billion. On the fiscal year 2019 cash budget, the total cash budget for fiscal year 2019 is $162,723,000. As of June 30th, 2019, paid to date is $28,084,000, leaving a remaining budget of $134,639,000 in the fiscal year 2019 budget. We have some dashboard controls here. This is showing the fiscal year 2019 budget. According to the plan, we were based on a division by 12 of an annual monthly expenditure. We should have been about 81 million. We're currently at about 28 million. So that's 17.26% of the fiscal year 2019 budget that's been expended. Co-executive director approved contract items. Task Order 25 Amendment 3 for HMG, total budget estimate increase of $146,561,000 for hydrology and hydraulic modeling for Phase 9. And then Task Order 30 Amendment 1 property structure mitigation services, again for HMG, that was pretty much a budget reallocation. It was a zero change to the budget. Cass County Joint Water Resource District approved contract items. There were 3 of them. Task Order 1, Amendment 2 to appraisal package number 3, decreased the budget by $192. Task Order 1, Amendment 1 to appraisal package number 8 for GEB, increased the budget by $3,500. And Task Order 2, Amendment 1 to appraisal package number 10, increased the budget by $1,000. Activities and achievements. One of the big projects underway is the work package 42E. That's the 2nd Street South flood mitigation. The work is progressing. At the last board meeting, they were about 35% complete. They've progressed beyond that, and work is moving along steadily. Here's some pictures up here of the project. Some good construction pictures. Land acquisition and property mitigation status. 58 appraisals were approved in the last month. 4 parcels were acquired in the last month. Continuing to move forward, purchase agreements being negotiated for the channel parcels and preparing for appraisal work for the Red River control structure, the Western Tieback levee, and other upstream properties. Started securing rights of entry to support the I-29 roadways and Southern Embankment design efforts, as well as continuing to process and secure environmental monitoring easements. Those are the BioGeo work. Supported the formation of the Minnesota Lands Acquiring Entity, that's the MCC JPA, and continuing to support for the Ag Impact Study by NDSU, gathering data to support the Phase 2 flowage easement valuation study, and also continuing discussions regarding the Drayton Dam replacement project. This is just a quick snapshot. This is from the snapshots from the property status report. Here we're showing the phases of the channel, the property acquisition along the channel of Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. As you can see, the green are the parcels that have already been acquired. The blue are agreements that have already been signed. The dark blue, the light blue are the properties that are in negotiation, and the yellow parcels are parcels that are either still in the appraisal process or pending appraisal process. So there's quite a bit of movement going on. Again, we anticipate the property acquisition completion for the channel to be completed in spring of 2020. Outreach activities, or activities and achievements for the outreach and social media. Updated the monthly talking points and produced the 3 questions video with Tom Beadle, and developed outreach in support of legal findings. On the analytics report, there was 1 newsletter that was published that had 1,379 recipients receive that letter with a 40% open rate and a 17% click rate. Website visitors, over 1,000, about 1,300, with the most popular pages on the website being information about the project dashboard, and the project status. Project web map included 180 views in June, and on the video, 3 videos were released. That was 665 minutes of watch time from 56 viewers. And on the Twitter, there were currently 815 followers, 6 new in the past month. 2 tweets were sent out with 257 profile visits and nearly 2,500 tweet impressions received. On the short-term look ahead, that's the next, pretty much the next 3 months. Finalized Task Order 6. We were anticipating that to come through this month, but it's going to be pushed back to about to the August meeting. Support the contested case hearing in the Buffalo Red River Watershed District permit challenge processes. Mitigation requirements and permit conditions review meeting with the North Dakota Office of State Engineer staff. Begin securing rights of entry for parts of the southern embankment. Negotiate the scope for the Phase 2 flow easement evaluation. Complete appraisals for all diversion channel properties. It's moving forward. Support initial activities at the MCC JPA and submit the application to MDNR for funding. And then report to the North Dakota Water Topics Overview Interim Committee on August 1st. On the long-term look ahead, which is the next 3 to 6 months out, reactivate the P3 procurement. That's pending approval of Task Order 6. Confirm the P3 proposers' remobilizations schedule, as John Shockley will probably talk about a little bit later. Update the program reporting of the budget and schedule. Finalize the interim funding and financial strategy. Solidify upstream structure mitigation requirements in coordination with permitting agencies. Provide outreach to 30 political jurisdictions related to the CLOMAR requirements. Achieve substantial completion of the work package 42E 2nd Street South and Main Avenue Pump Station project, and begin appraisals for the Western Tieback levee. And that wraps it up for the PMC report.
Thank you very much. And moving on to the Army Corps of Engineers project update.
Yeah, so we're pleased to report some great progress since the last board meeting, and I'll ask Terry to walk us through.
So you have a monthly update in front of you that includes some pictures on the back, and then our construction bar chart that shows the federal placement. So number one on the monthly update, the diversion inlet is the site is currently being dewatered. It should take about 3 weeks to get that site dewatered. It'll get dried out, and then we'll start a pile load test. And that what's shown there is what is anticipated work over the next few years. So in 2020 will be all the foundation work, the deep soil mixing. 21 will be the concrete structure and the control building. 22 is installing the bridge deck, the gates, and the gate operating machinery. 23, paint the gates and seed, and then in 2024, get the grass grown and established. Number 2 is the Wild Rice River structure. After 2 years of intense design, I'm pleased to report we put that project out on the street on Monday for bids. So that'll be a 45-day proposal period, and on the 5th of September, whoever's interested will submit their proposals, and it's a low-price, technically acceptable analysis of those proposals. So whoever submits the bids, they have a technical proposal, a team goes through those, decides if it's a go, no go, and then whoever passes that test goes to the financial part, and then the low bidder typically gets it. So that's how that process will go. We anticipate awarding a contract in November of 2019. Number 3, the Red River structure, we're designing that. We've started design. The physical model is being constructed. And on the back, there's a picture. The bottom picture is a picture of the guys in Erdic putting the model together. That will be about a 15-month process from going through and running alternatives to getting a final report out of that physical model effort. Number 4, Southern Embankment Plan B design. If you're out driving around, you may have seen our drill rig. Currently, they're on Clay County 50. They plan to move to Cass 16 and continue conducting borings on the new alignment. The first piece of construction that we're planning is late 2020, and that would be the western tieback. So the tieback or the dam feature that goes from the inlet southwest. Number 5 is the cultural mitigation that we're doing, where there's 2 sites on the diversion channel that our contractors are working at. They've experienced some rain delays, and we'll be back out in the field the week of 29 July. And we should know in August how big of the site we have at each location and continue mitigating those 2 sites. We're planning a media opportunity for the 19th of August. The last one got canceled due to weather. And number 6 is the federal construction placement schedule. I think you all got this by email. This is a pretty comprehensive schedule, and it shows what pieces will be built when as part of the southern embankment and the structures and the timing and also the federal mitigation components. And we set this up such that if we do all of these southern embankment elements as shown, we would be operational at the estimated time that the diversion channel would be operational, which of course is going to shift depending on when the proposals come in and what they propose getting done. So if anybody has any questions on this, we'd be happy to entertain them. With that, the Corps of Engineers update is complete.
Does anyone have any questions for Terry? Again, Terry, I really like this a lot. It's very helpful. It's a great thing to be able to share with the public as well. Item number 7, administrative legal, resolution related to the execution of agreements. Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name's John Shockley. For the new members present, I serve as general counsel for the project and P3 lead. Thought maybe just have a housekeeping resolution today, but maybe give a brief update to the board. You'll recall last month in June, the board approved sending the letter of intent to US EPA WIFIA that was submitted on July 5th. We did get confirmation that US EPA had submitted that. And then Kim had referenced the P3 procurement and restarting that. Our intent is to bring before this board in August Task Order 6 regarding the recommencement of the P3 procurement. One of the first due outs as part of that process will be an engagement with each of the 3 teams to find out how long it will take their teams to remobilize. You'll recall the federal judge had authorized as part of his modified injunction order allowing the P3 procurement to proceed. And so I can certainly answer any questions you might have about the tentative schedule, but that'll be upcoming in August. I'll have a full presentation regarding the work items that will be included in Task Order 6 as it is quite extensive, and there's a lot of work ahead of us to complete the procurement and start construction on the channel. The only item I have for the board today is a housekeeping resolution that would authorize the current chair, who last year was also the vice chair, to go ahead and sign 2 documents that were approved by this board in late December. And so it's a housekeeping item so we can get those 2 documents fully executed. Nothing really unusual, just looking for a motion to approve, and we'll get the documents signed up. And I can answer any other questions the board might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Judd?
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Wayland?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion carries. Moving on to item number 8, public outreach. Is there a committee report?
Tammy, I think, is going to.
Hi, Tammy.
I'm Tammy Joe. I work on public outreach for the project. So I handed out the updated talking points sheet, which should be in front of you. That's a monthly edition that you get. We had a good meeting yesterday, and one thing that we wanted to show was the project YouTube channel today. And I'm just going to show you a short bit of one video and then a full second video. So we posted a construction flyover that was shot on June 11th. And a good thing about these flyovers, it gives you a little bit of perspective about some of the scale of the project, and it's neat to watch. This is one of the most watched pieces that we put together. So we hope as construction continues, we'll have a lot of good flyover videos to engage folks and for the media to use. I'll just skip ahead a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of water there. And then the second video I wanted to show is a 3 questions video that we did with North Dakota State Representative Thomas Beadle, he's got a lot of good points. So.
So I think when anyone's looking at where to set up their home and where to plant their roots, they want to make sure that they have a nice, stable community, one where they feel safe and secure, that their home's going to be protected, and that they've got a good community around them that'll help support them as they grow, as their families grow, as their kids grow. And as we look at Fargo and we look at this community of what's really impacting Fargo, West Fargo, the Moorhead area, we know that one of the biggest threats that we have and one of the biggest concerns is that annual spring flooding. It impacts our region constantly. You know, I've been a real estate broker for the last 10 years, and so whenever people are looking, they're always asking if it's a good market, if it's a good time to buy. What we have to recognize is that the threat of flooding is real. That's impacting everyone who's going out and buying a home. They have to check the flood map, see where they're going to be. That's a concern for everyone. In my legislative district, that's 82% of my constituents are in the flood zone. They're in the flood map, and they'd be required to have flood insurance. And the money that they have to spend on a flood insurance premium is money that they can no longer afford for the house of their dreams. That takes away their purchasing power. So when we're talking community-wide, that we're at risk of losing $50 million a year in flood insurance premiums, just vanishing out of our market. You know, that's money that families could be spending, you know, providing for themselves and their kids. That's money they could be investing into our market, into our retail shops, into our restaurants, going out to our entertainment venues. I mean, that's vital to our economy. We're asking the state to come forward with a commitment that we haven't seen for flood control projects in the state of North Dakota before. This is a huge commitment, no doubt, no question about it. But we're protecting $20 billion worth of property valuation in Cass County. Within the flood protection area, we have 25% of our state's GDP. 20% of our state's population is being impacted by this. So if we want to talk economic realities for our community, not just locally, but for our state as a whole, we know that ensuring that we don't lose this money and having it vanish from the market in the form of premiums that the federal government's charging us is vital to ensuring that our economy is able to continue to grow and prosper. It's been good so far in the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo community. We've had good growth. Having permanent protection is vital to ensuring that that growth is able to continue. So in 2009, I was a senior at Concordia College. And for those that remember the flood in 2009, you know, we had these sandbags built, we had the levees and the flood walls built, and then all of a sudden, the map changed again. We had an additional melt, additional projections. So in communities like over in Rose Creek, we had to go back in, and now we had to add 2 feet onto these flood walls that we thought were already built. We had that blizzard that came right at the end, and so we're out there having to, you know, beat the sandbags with baseball bats, trying to break these up so we can lay them down to make sure that the homes are protected, because otherwise, you know, all of their belongings, everything they had was at risk. Our community's invested heavily to try to stop that reliance on our high school and college age kids, but we need to know that we don't have to have that as our backstop going forward, and permanent protection will help us do that.
So,
well done.
So if there's any questions about.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. Yesterday's meeting, these were very good presentations, and one of the things that we talked about is how can we expand our abilities to get these messages out outside of just the social media. And, you know, so we had quite a bit of talk, and I think moving forward, you know, we want to talk about certainly why the project is still needed. We need to constantly remind people of that. But then also that the project is moving forward, and, you know, showing these flyovers and seeing some construction work being done as a reminder that, yes, this project's moving forward. But we also talked about how can we expand that outreach, and Tom, I look to you as one example. I think we're going to be wanting to talk to people like your organization. You know, how can we get different areas to help us? So I think we'll be reaching out to your organization as well as many other agencies and entities that have supported this project for a long time, and I think we really want to expand on these types of messages that are going out there. So it was a good meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And then we do have the task force too.
When it's 80 degrees out, it's nice to remember we had snowstorms when we were fighting floods, so it's, you kind of forget that.
Good reminders. Tom Dawson with the Business Leaders Task Force.
We don't have anything currently that we're planning on, but we're ready. I mean, we'll get together very quickly, Kevin, so we've got a group of people that would be very anxious to tackle any issues that come up, meet with different people and factions, so.
Appreciate it, and I appreciate your presence here always. Moving on to item number 9, Land Management. Land Management Committee, of which I chair, did not meet yesterday, not because we have a lack of activity, but because we are a policy board and we have spent years honing our policies on that, and now we are moving full go on land acquisition. And so a very, very active group of folks is reaching out and doing all the land acquisition activities with appraisals and so on and so forth. Kim already went over some of that. You do have a report in your packet that you can take a look at if you'd like, but we are on track and moving forward, and if you have any questions, be happy to answer them. Eric Dodds is here and he heads that effort up, and he'd be happy to answer those as well. Unless, Eric, you have anything else to add? And then, as I said, the property status report was already presented, so I will move on to item number 10, Finance Committee. Commissioner Grinberg?
Madam Chair, yesterday Finance spent 16 minutes and 29 seconds as a committee. Many of the items Kim covered. I would draw your attention to the balance sheet that we have, a little over 97 million in the bank, with large receivable from the State Water Commission, a tad over 9 million. I'd be certainly happy to answer any questions outside of my brief remarks on item 10A and Kim's report, but I would move that acceptance of the financial report for the month.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion on the financial report? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn? Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Judd?
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Wayland?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, just an added comment, things will change as we ramp up and have more activity on financial report, but been pretty short for the last few months, and everybody knows that's about to change. I would move item 10B, the request for vouchers of $2,956,109 to Cass County Joint Water Resource District, Dorsey, Whitney, and Onstead Twitchell.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Judd?
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Wayland?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair, just briefly then on contracting items, no Diversion Authority Board action required this month. There were no requests. On co-director approved contracts, task order 25, amendment 3 for hydrology and hydraulic modeling was approved by the co-directors for $146,562 to Houston Moore Group. And one other note on contracting for the Resource District, total of $4,500 that were approved as well. So that would be the report. I don't believe any actions are required as a result.
Thank you, and thank you to the Finance Committee for all of your hard efforts. Item number 11, in other business, I would ask Mr. Wilson, the Co-Executive Director, to introduce this next topic, and then afterwards, I would ask Mr. Shockley, our legal counsel, to explain the process to us.
Madam Chair, members of the board, on July 17th, you met as a board and interviewed 3 candidates for the executive director position. This is your opportunity to follow up on those interviews. As Chair Sherling indicated, you're going to hear a few messages from Mr. Shockley on procedural items related to that. Very briefly, I would just provide some additional information to you that at the end of those interviews, there was a request to have our consultant who's been working with us through this search process reach out to a number of the candidates with some information on salary requirements, and that's been provided to you in hard copy at your desk. Only follow-up to that I would have is that I did have an opportunity to speak with the local candidate yesterday who reached out and said that they would be in a position to negotiate from that starting position that was provided. That is the conclusion of my comments to you to kick this item off, unless you have any questions for me. Otherwise, I'd turn it over to Mr. Shockley for additional input.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the Diversion Authority Board. The process to approve the hiring of an executive director for the Diversion Authority is one of those items that was called out in the Joint Powers Agreement as requiring a special vote. Given the importance of the position, there are a few other items that require a special vote. And specifically relating to the executive director, to confirm the appointment of an executive director, you need at least one affirmative vote from one of the 3 Fargo members of the board, an affirmative vote from at least one of the 3 Cass County board members, and one affirmative vote from one of the 5 Minnesota members. So while it is a majority vote motion, it still requires an affirmative vote from one of those groups, and of one vote from each of those groups in order to appoint the executive director. This is your opportunity to discuss which candidate you would prefer to negotiate with. If there is direction from the board, myself and co-deputy executive director Wilson would then reach out with the consultant to talk with that candidate and potentially bring back a package for the board to consider. I would envision that we would have a special meeting, at which time we'd have an executive session so we could talk any negotiating terms and possibly come to an agreement with that candidate. However, the first step is for the board to decide which candidate it would like us to approach with an offer.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Shockley? It is a bit of a unique process, so I want to make sure that we understood it. Okay, very well then.
I guess I'll make a motion, but if we don't mind, have a little bit of discussion ahead of time if that's appropriate.
Certainly.
I thought that the 3 candidates were all very good. I think as kind of a consensus, there was kind of 2 that were maybe a little bit ahead of the 3rd. From my perspective, the candidate that I'm going to recommend maybe had a little more veteran experience, and I do think this is a very important thing from that perspective, because this is obviously a large project. I do think that the local candidate had more technical experience, and I'm not sure that that's necessary, even though it's a good thing. We have lots of good technical within our group. So that's my comments. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments, but I'll make the motion to Barrett Lane for him to be the executive director.
Thank you, Commissioner Pepcorn. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen. Discussion. Commissioner Steen.
I would agree with Mr. Pipcorn. 3 good candidates, 3 different candidates for sure. They were as different as you could find, I think. The 2 candidates that they referred to, Joel and Barrett, I think were both excellent candidates. One of the comments we made, we wish we could squish them together. Have the experience for that they both have all in one package, and unfortunately we don't have that individual on the docket because we didn't find that individual. But I think both candidates are great. I don't think we would go wrong with either one. I think the experience level from the organization and level and just a governmental experience and administrative experience probably tilts towards Barrett. a little bit. I think the other issue is, I think both candidates, that was interesting, suggested they'll probably have to hire a engineer as part of their staff. So I thought that was interesting coming from both candidates. Again, I think both candidates are excellent. I would tilt towards Barrett just because of the administrative and experience.
Here.
Just so the public understands, the board spent time with all three candidates and interviewed them for well over 3 hours, so we had a lot of time with the candidates. Press was invited. I don't think anybody showed up that day, so they didn't get to see all the interviews. But we did have a great opportunity to interview, ask a lot of different questions, and I think the board's well satisfied that we have two excellent candidates that we'd say either one is excellent for the project, and really is taking the authority to a new level. We really feel that then Mary doesn't have to do all the work, but it would be helpful.
Object to that. Are there any further comments, any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The squish them together guy, that was me. The rationale behind that was, and again, I think we had three candidates, three distinct, two rows above the rest. In talking to friends and family, my statement was essentially, you always wish for the struggle of having too many good candidates. I don't this time. I would have rather been far more comfortable having just one do really super good and not have to have an uncomfortable conversation, knowing full well that we've got two, one that we know that maybe the other might be the one we go with. I'm not sure right now, but right now I'm supporting Mr. Lane. The rationale behind it is I need someone that can set up an office, get it going, but the struggle, the internal struggle I'm having with myself right now is the fact that I think that 2, maybe 3 years from now, Joel might be the guy. So how do you establish an office, get everything chugging in the way we need it to chug, and figure out what's next? That's what I'm struggling the most with right now. And again, right now I'm supporting Mr. Lane because the needs of today are the needs of today. But 2 or 3 years from now, I'm going to be blunt. Do you hire Mr. Paulson 2 or 3 years from now or someone like him to supplement the needs of what I think we're going to need in terms of construction support? I don't know, because I also asked Mr. Paulson directly, and as Commissioner Pepcorn stated, we've got a lot of engineers, we don't need any more. I've also said we've got a lot of lawyers, we don't need any more. So I'll just stop. I could go on probably for, as most of you know, I could go on for 2 or 3 hours on this, but I'll just stop there and listen to anyone else that wishes to share.
Well, Madam Chair, great discussion. Full disclosure, I was not able to participate in the interviews. But I have read all the materials, had a couple conversations with a couple of the DA members, and that feedback is echoed here today. 2 great candidates, can't go wrong. And so my sense is we need somebody that can hit the ground running, and somebody outside the area will have a year of understanding the dynamics, the culture, the politics, and I'm a local preference guy. So I'm going to weigh on the side of Mr. Paulson.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is,
Okay.
Yes, Mayor Judd, please.
thank you. This is a very tough decision for me because obviously I know Mr. Paulson just from the work on the city council. And, I think I really wrestle with this because I have to be objective and I have to look at the best interests of this project, but also at the best interests of the community at large, who, this project is going to protect and going to serve. And, it was, again, I lost a lot of sleep thinking about this, and I feel what it really comes down to is what we looked at in our packets regarding the key attributes that are being assessed. And I think both candidates meet all those key attributes. But I think what it really comes down to for me is, and I'm going to probably back Commissioner Grimberg on this, I think someone that knows the local dynamics of this project. And I think if you're looking at, again, I'm going to pick some of the key attributes, and I'll be brief here, I'll get through this, but an already recognized level of credibility and ability to quickly establish a mutual trust and respect. I think Mr. Paulson has that. The interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, and the political astuteness necessary to build and maintain relationships with the board, external partners, and community. I think Mr. Paulson has more than established that credibility within our community. The ability to develop and grow the governance capacity of the board to build a strong and coherent governance model that will endure beyond the physical construction of the project. This is where I was torn between Mr. Lane and Mr. Paulson. I had to really look at the materials to really figure out how to weigh both of the candidates. All three of the candidates, I want to give some respect to all three candidates, but I feel I would have to tip the scale in favor of Mr. Paulson. So I'm going to side with Commissioner Greenberg on this one and back to Mr. Paulson.
Thank you. Is there, Commissioner Campbell, you were about to say something.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. This isn't easy. We're talking about three candidates here, and as Mr. Shockley went through and talked about the process and what we need and what we don't need, I want to remind one of the candidates made a statement that they thought no matter who you pick, hopefully you can be unanimous in them. So I'm a little disappointed that we had the motion up front on one candidate without a first more group dialogue. Having said that, each person's entitled to that. And I look at it from the standpoint, too, of what we still need to accomplish. And we have a lot to accomplish in the state of Minnesota when it comes to funding. And I think, I think Joel Paulson is the right guy there. I think he's the right guy when it comes to so many aspects of this. He stands up and he speaks so positively of this project, and he's very passionate about it. He's made that clear. He wants to be involved with a large project, and he said he would be here through its completion. And he's the only one that I heard say that of the candidates that we interviewed. And I think that's important that we take that into consideration, that whoever we get on here, we know that they're going to be here in year 2, 3, and 4 during these difficult times, and not have to go back and redo or to hire somebody in year 3 for some reason. But I support Joel. I have all the respect for Barrett and the third candidate for that matter. I just really hope that through this dialogue process, we're not going to do it based on each of our entities and where we come from. That's the disturbing part of this to me, is that, I don't want to have it turn out that maybe all of the Minnesota people will vote no on a current motion and then have it. I don't want us to go there. That's kind of why I was hoping that there wouldn't have been a motion up front and we can have some more dialogue on this. But I agree with Tony too on my choice for candidates.
Well, I think we are in a unique situation. I appreciate your comments. I want to say something here, and then if others want to speak, please do. But for the past year and a half, I've been more than just a board member. I've been working this project on a daily basis, and I've gotten to know it very, very in depth. It's a great project, and if it wasn't for the staff out there, I can't imagine where we'd be. And this board. I mean, we are a diverse board with multiple talents, and kudos to us all and for past board members for getting us to this point. People have worked really, really hard. what I've seen since I've become chair is a real need for an organizational structure that we lack. And when I look at Barrett Lane, he just checks all the boxes for that. He's got a strong municipal finance and budgeting background. He's an expert in analysis and negotiations. He built a department from the ground up. He knows how to manage and review complex contracts. He's very successfully executed large and sometimes very difficult public projects, such as emergency manager of the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. He's also been a politician. He understands the dynamics as previously sitting on the Minneapolis City Council. For me, he just checks all the boxes, and I just think that we need a leader with that kind of experience. Joel's a great guy. I've been on trips with him. He handles himself very well. He's a great board member. I just think that this is such an enormous project that sometimes we all lose sight of what a big project it is. And we need someone that really has that experience and expertise to step in here and gather things up and get things organized, because we're ready to go. Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, and I apologize, I did not mean to make a motion to cut off any discussion, so I apologize for that. I just want to add a couple quick comments. This is a $2.75 billion project. You need to have somebody that walks in the room that can own the room. And Joel is very good, but many comments were, he's not quite ready at this point. He can grow into the position. This is not a position, a $2.75 billion project where you have somebody leading it that can grow into the position. You need to have somebody that's jaded, that can walk in the room and own the room. We're going to have opponents that are going to get in your face. You need to have somebody experienced with that. And so I believe Barrett, especially being on the Minneapolis Council, you have experience with that kind of thing. So and I hope you don't take this is not one or the other. They're both, I would be happy with whoever we pick. However, you got to pick the veteran that you feel can do this job right out of the box, and that's Barrett. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would anyone else like to discuss this? Any other comments, any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Hendrickson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to support Joel on this because I think the majority of the project's going to be construction, and I just feel better with an engineer in charge of the construction aspect of the project. And I agree with Commissioner Grinberg. He can hit the ground running. He grew up in Warren. He's been fighting floods all his life, and I think he's a good fit. And administrative, I mean, he's been with Stantec, and he's run that office, and he's had some pretty big projects, so I think he's just the best fit for that, John. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Well, then we'll have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Nay.
Mr. Judd?
Nay.
Mr. Hendrickson?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
No.
Mr. Wayland?
No.
Mr. Thorsted?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
No.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
That's 6-6.
Yes, but we needed to have.
With no Minnesota representative, so we would have to, it would fail the basis of that. I move to approve Joel Paulson.
Second.
Is there a discussion? Is there a discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Judd?
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Wayland?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
And the motion carries. Is there any other business?
Congratulations, you finally have a new CEO, Mayor.
No, we don't.
That's to negotiate.
That's to negotiate. So I'm going to let Mr. Shockley speak.
I'm assuming that the person who made the motion and second, that was contingent upon reaching an agreement with the preferred candidate. If it's okay, I think we would like to schedule a special meeting for the 8th of, so it'd be the second Thursday in August, which the first Thursday is the first day of August, so it'd be August 8th. And we would schedule an executive session to go over any of the contract terms, and if there's anything that we need to negotiate with them, and that if it looks like we can reach an agreement, potentially approve an employment agreement after you come out of executive session, if that's okay with the board.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Madam Chair, to complement that, we would likely schedule a finance committee meeting the day before at 4:15 for a 45-minute discussion on task order 6, then to recommend the next day so that we would have task order 6 completed in early August.
And that would be August 14th.
That would be August 6th.
August 6th, okay.
August 8th, isn't it? August 8th.
I think it'd be
Thursday?
the August 7th. Would be.
Finance would be August 7th.
7th.
And the meeting, the other meeting is August 8th, and actually you all have that on your calendars because we have that as a placeholder.
Okay. Any further discussion or any further business?
To adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.